Welcome to the 15th edition of the Jaipur Literature Festival, protected by Dettol Banega Swasth India at Jan Michalski Foundation, Betak. The festival brochure and flyer with details of the full program are available for purchase at the information desk. We are delighted to introduce Readings from Far and Near. This session is presented by Dainik Bhaskar. We inhabit as many worlds as the languages we speak, read, and write. There is a club of gifted writers who can communicate their creativity in both their mother tongues and learned languages, famously including Samuel Beckett, Vladimir Nabokov. In an insightful session, two writers whose lives and writings straddle different worlds and literary cultures, Onyeka Nwelue and Fırat Sunel, discuss their literary endeavours in English and Turkish with Puneeta Roy. I request Puneeta Roy to take over the session.
Thank you so much, Deba. It's a great honor for me to be here with two really illustrious writers, one from Nigeria and our Turkish ambassador to India, Fırat Sunel. I'm actually, since this is a session on readings, I'm going to have a very short conversation, but allow them to present their work to you directly. So I'll start with you first, Onyeka. You've been a Nigerian author, filmmaker, talk show host. You actually are a visiting academic visitor at the University of Oxford, and you've started the James Currey Center. Now, I'm putting these words out. There is not enough time to go into explain because it's going to cut away from our time. But there are two books that Onyeka has brought here, The Abyssinian Boy and The Strangers of Braamfontein. Maybe we would first, before we play the AV, I want to just ask you about The Abyssinian Boy, so that once we finish that, we'll move to the other book then, right? So it's really interesting. Onyeka grew up in Nigeria in a very illustrious family, but at the age of 18, he set out for India. And he lived in Paharganj. Onyeka, I'm going to leave it to you to tell us a little bit about what you were doing here as an 18-year-old.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Like I always tell people, especially Indians, when I see them, I say, "Ye mera India." I came here when I was 18 years old because I had finished high school and everyone else was going to university, but I was quite young, inexperienced. And I told my father that there was a poetry festival happening in Chandigarh, Haryana, and a lot of places, Uttar Pradesh, that I wanted to attend. Himachal Pradesh. So he agreed to fund my trip, and he bought me a flight ticket and said, "Okay, since you don't want to go to university, go." And then I landed in India, and I ended up staying here longer, living in Paharganj, where I was paying 300 rupees per night for a guest house there. But what I wanted to achieve was this book. And it was my first book. It's my first book, written when I was 18. And then I went back to Nigeria with a manuscript and then was lucky enough to get a publisher after about 20 rejections or 30 rejections. So that's my story.
Yeah.
India was the first country I ever went to, and the country that made me confident as a writer.
As a writer.
Yeah, if I didn't succeed with this, I wouldn't have written this.
Right. And The Abyssinian Boy is really about, it's a marriage of cultures, gender. It's really about a family, Rajagopalan, who's a South Indian Brahmin, who marries Eunice, right? Who's a Christian Nigerian woman. And they're very happy together. At times, there's a little clash of, the culture bit comes in. But they have a son called David, and when he travels to Nigeria, he falls ill. And then there is this deportation of Nigerians happening. So, I mean, it's a very interesting book. But I'm going to ask you, have you chosen a passage that you would like to share?
Yes, I marked something. Do you want me to read them?
Yeah.
There are different characters which I developed as a young person, but I didn't have clear knowledge of what should be India. So this is my own perception of the India that I knew. So it's about the Rajagopalan family, a house full of vibrations and discussions, conversations, political conversations, racial discussions. So here it is. This is on page 113. The next day, Eunice drove herself to 24/7 on Larch Patanagar 2. She was quick at shopping. She shopped for beverages, noodles, toiletries, canned jams, sauces, juices, milk, and butter. Others were soaps, pomades, toothbrushes, and pastes. She returned home immediately, and Yamna was there with her children. She told them that her husband had traveled to Beijing for an official assignment. As she stepped in, Supriya greeted her. "How are you?" she asked her, and she said she was all right. David and Raghu were sitting in the couch. "You will have another girlfriend?" Raghu asked. "No." Farida called David from inside and said that the American boy wanted to see him. Then Picard entered and eyed Supriya. Raghu pinched her skin. She screamed, began to walk away, flat-souled and crying. Eunice was reading Midnight Children in the veranda, sitting in a cane chair when Warren Frazel and his wife arrived. They sat opposite her and Farida served them Dangerine tea. They sipped, and while they did so, Eunice buried her head in the book. "I heard you're going to Nigeria," Mr. Fraser asked. "Yes," she said, without looking up. "You gotta be careful," Mrs. Fraser said. "That's my country, my friend," she kept reading. "Theek hai," Mrs. Fraser polished her Hindi. "Aap kana kya hai?" Eunice looked up at her angrily. "Nay," she replied, "we have no food here." They stood, and as they got to the gate, Jashim, the Bangladeshi, was struggling to enter. Mrs. Fraser said, "Namaste." He said, "Namaste ji," and they passed. Eunice cheered up briskly when she saw Jashim holding a polythene bag in his right hand. She offered him a seat and asked him if he wanted nigri tea or chocolate. "Thank you, Madam Eunice," he said. "This." He stretched the polythene bag towards her. "I buy from Chandni Chowk and this from Chowri Bazaar. Gold necklace worth 10 carats, purity of coins. You take. Inside, I buy wristwatch for Sarajaswamy."
Okay.
Eunice didn't stretch her hand to take it. "No, why not take, Madam Eunice?" "I just can't, Jashim," and astonished Eunice said. "No." Eunice lightened up. "Oh, but thanks. No, Madam Eunice." He thanked her and left. Swathi walked sluggishly to Rajaswamy's car. It was 8:31 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So he's really got a sense of Delhi and, the streets and the sort of, what would I say, the ethos-y sense of Delhi.
I was trying to show off to people that I know Delhi.
That you knew Delhi, all right. So now let's move to the next book, The Strangers of Braamfontein. Could we have the AV on, please? Yeah. And this was written how many years later?
This one?
Huh.
Probably 10 years.
Africans
10 years after that, okay.
consider themselves strangers to themselves.
Makanam warego, makanam jego, akunubanam, hey, akunubanam, awareness oko, akunubanam.
I will tell you a story. Once upon a time, a young man called Osas left for Lagos. On the evening, he arrived O.R. Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg. His perception of life changed. To survive, he must live a life of adventure and spontaneity and criminality through the corners of Braamfontein. The Strangers of Braamfontein is laced with Nigerian and South African ethos, and the sights and sounds of Braamfontein are subtly painted in this narrative of well-orchestrated and stereotyped characters. Shine your eye, because you fit be the next person to buy for this place.
Thank you. So, as you've seen in the visuals, this is an extremely rough and edgy novel set in Braamfontein, which is in the inner city of Johannesburg, and Osas, who's the hero, comes to seek his fortune because from Nigeria he thinks he's going to get wealthy in South Africa. And then he encounters the Francophone gang and, you know, all the characters, and there's Madame Ruth who runs the brothel, and the characters are rough and they're mean, and yeah. So this transition, compared to that, the Abyssinian Boy is relatively really nice and serene, though there's turmoil within the characters. But here they're mean to one another. Would you like to tell us a little bit about, you know, what actually inspired you to, was it some experiences you went through also, or just observations about life in South Africa?
There is no character in the Strangers of Braamfontein that I can connect with at all. But the characters are based on people I've met.
You met, okay.
Stories I've read, stories I've heard. Osas is, in fact, I wrote this first as a screenplay for a film. For a film I was meant to shoot in Italy. It was called Road to Rome, of West African migrants going to Europe by sea and by road and the rest of them. And then I was invited by a film company in Milan to make a presentation. And after the presentation, they never got back to me till today.
Right.
Yeah, so I thought it was important to novelize it and set it in Africa. And which, the question came to me, what is the most developed country in Africa? South Africa. Yes. Exactly. Yes. So you can even say Cape Town is more beautiful than New York and the rest of them in the West.
I agree.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, the desperation with which young West Africans and other Africans have to go to South Africa, yeah. I can actually create entertainment with that, and which is why every single character in The Strangers of Braamfontein is filled with desperation and violent nature. And I realized when the book came out that crime fiction sells more than literary fiction.
Right.
Yeah, so I've started developing a series called the Nigerian Mafia. The first one is set in Mumbai. I finished the draft already and sent to my publisher. So I think crime fiction moves quickly off shelves. So I'll just keep writing crime fiction so I can have some money to buy more clothes.
All right, which are all made in India, incidentally.
Yeah, so the idea was actually to make money. That was why I said, let me entertain them. And it's been developed into a series as well, a TV series.
I see, okay. So we have actually 5 minutes for a reading from there.
Okay,
and
so
then
I'll do 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. To also say, Nigerians need visa to go to South Africa, which doesn't happen in Europe, where if you have a Schengen visa, you can travel to 25 countries in the Schengen. But in African Union, we need visa to travel to Algeria, Morocco, and the rest of them, and South Africa. So here at the airport, Osas is being extorted by immigration officers at the OR Tambo airport. The officer reached for the satchel, opened it, and upturned its content onto the table. He felt around the satchel for any hidden pockets. There was none. He picked up the yellow fever card and examined it. This yellow fever card is fake. Sir, you heard me right. Osasi's bones felt like gel. He had paid 1,000 naira for the yellow fever card at the airport in Lagos. Some woman in a nurse's uniform had simply filled in his details and passport number into the card, signed, stamped, and handed him the card. She never gave him any shots. We can't let you into the country, but sir, please, hold on, my friend, but for $100, we will forget about your yellow fever card. Osas had only $150 in his pocket. He handed the officer a $100 bill. The man pocketed it and became jovial that instant. He helped Osas put his things back into his satchel and then led him out. As Osas waited for a taxi, another man drew up next to him. He was waiting for a taxi too. Approaching middle age, he wore neatly tailored chinos and blazer suit. It was obvious that he was East African, perhaps Kenyan, and well-to-do. A taxi swerved into the curb. The driver came around. He haggled briefly with him, then helped the man put his luggage into the trunk. The Kenyan would have settled into the back seat, but the driver talked him into getting into the front seat. The taxi took unnecessarily long to leave. The Kenyan stumbled out of the taxi, and the car zoomed off immediately. The Kenyan began to shout and cry. He threw his hands in the air. It was then that Osas realized that the driver had robbed the man of his wallet, jewelry, and blazer. His luggage was gone too. Osas exhales. South Africa had created a fearful first impression. However, what has he not seen in this life? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Onyeka. Fırat, thank you so much for taking time out. He is, incidentally, the Turkish ambassador to India. So before we start about the books, I just want to ask you about, as a diplomat, how do you find the time to write?
Yeah, this is a very frequent question.
Yeah.
You're right. You know, as diplomats, we are on duty 24 hours. And to finding time for novels, you have to get up very early, or you have to work very late.
Okay.
So I choose the first one.
All right.
I am a day person. For long years, I have been getting up very early, 5 o'clock in the mornings, including Sundays and Saturdays.
Okay.
So from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., so they have, I have
okay.
those, yes, hours only
You're
for
with
me.
your characters.
Yes, so otherwise I cannot.
Right, okay. So Fırat has actually written 3 books in Turkish, and two of them are historical fiction. And so the first one was, can we show that to them?
Yes.
Yeah. In the Shadow of the Weeping Willow. So
Yes.
what is the Turkish title?
Salkım Söğütlerin Gövresinde. So this is a historical novel. In the Shade of Weeping Willows.
Willows, yes.
So this is my first novel.
Right.
Published in 2010, I think, and adapted to also a series in Turkey.
A very popular series, I understand,
Yes,
yeah?
yes, that's...
and it's about the deportation of the...
Yes, this is a historical novel. This is about the deportation of Meskhetian Turks
From Georgia.
You know,
Yeah?
under Stalin rule in Georgia to Central Asia. Exodus of the Turks, 100,000 of people, they were taken from their homes, you know, in a night, and brought to the trains. And on their way from Caucasia to Central Asia, 30 to 40,000 people just died on the road. So this is the drama of those peoples.
Right. The next novel, which is Izmir, I think, is really interesting. I was told it's a psychological novel.
Yes.
Set from the point of view of a woman. And so for 5 years, Fırat said that he woke up in the morning feeling the emotions that his character had felt the previous day. Would you like to tell us a little bit
Yes,
about that?
this is true. This is Izmir. This is a psychological drama and a very deep love story. This novel is told by a woman, you know, through the eyes of a, yes, Eylül is September, so a young woman. Okay, it's normally usual that men authors write novels from the mouth of women. It's normal. But the difference is this is a love book. So I don't tell a story through the eyes of a woman, but I tell a woman's love in this book. So it makes it a bit different.
Right, okay. Okay, interesting. So just on an aside, did it make you understand women better while you were writing this?
I don't know. I think if somebody says I understand women, then he's lying.
That's a lie. And his daughter's nodding there. All right, so the book we're coming to now, The Children of the Lighthouse.
This one, yes.
The Turkish title, if you could sort of...
Yeah, the Turkish title is a bit different. This is Sarpıncık Feneri. It means the lighthouse in Sarpıncık. So such a lighthouse, it really exists. And in this book, I am telling the story of a family living in a remote lighthouse in West Turkey. So they live in this lighthouse, again during World War II, 1942. So, Turkey was not involved in Second World War, but people felt the war with misery and poverty, and everything was so difficult. And this book is not a war book. It tells the story of Greeks and Turkish people, not the relations between Greece and Turkey, but the relations and the stories of both peoples. My grandfathers, mothers from both sides, they came from Greece, Salonika. So now Greece, then that was Ottoman Empire. So I was grown up listening the stories of my grandmothers. They were happy, very happy in their new country, Izmir, new house, but they could never forget the soils where they were born. So they always feel the trauma of being uprooted. So it has also an influence on me because I heard their stories, and then when I was 5 years old, my family moved to Germany as migrants. So the second time I have to witness the migration. And as if it is not enough, I choose, an occupation which I am, it make me travel all over the world as a diplomat. So I still continue the family tradition and going from one country to another country. It's sometimes interesting, but it's really, most of the time, not so easy. Because you always have homesick. You miss your friends. You miss your families. You miss the places where you were born. And then you come to a country. You get used to living there. You have new friends, new environment, new culture. But after 3 years, 4 years, you have to leave this culture again. So especially, it's very difficult for our children. My daughter is here. Okay, they learn several languages, cultures. They become world citizen. This is an advantage, but they don't have permanent friends. So this is another thing. So in this Sarpıncık Feneri, children of the Lighthouse, it will be published in India soon, I think next month.
It's just been translated
It's just
into
been
English.
translated.
Yeah.
So my books are translated in other languages, like in Azerbaijani, in Georgia, in Albania, and so on, but not English yet. So it will be my first novel to be published in India in English. Translation is already finished. So in this book, this is a drama. And the relations, the historical and sad relations between those people, Turks and Greeks, are being told through the lenses of a 12-year-old boy, who is the son of the person who is carrying, the guide of the, Sarpıncık Feneri, the lighthouse. And in order to, I write this thin novel, I had to work 8 years. I found the real guard of this lighthouse. I visited him several times. I had to take him there. He told me stories. Because if it is a historical novel, you can find out the characters as you wish, but you cannot change the historical events. And so you have to learn it very well.
Fırat, can I ask you to read a passage? From
Okay,
this?
I will
Yeah.
read a passage, but because it is not published in English yet, I will use this tablet, although I don't like too much. But next time, or I hope next year, I
will
will
have
be
the
able to
book
read.
with you.
Yes, my book, and also other books will be also translated. So I will read just first chapter, just some paragraphs. In those paragraphs, I will introduce you the family, the Lighthouse family. But first, I need my glasses. Not because I cannot see, because with glasses I look more charismatic, that's why.
Absolutely, we believe you.
It was my favorite Saturday of the year. The day I always looked forward to. I had kissed my Nana's hand and left the village to cross the hills, dripping with sweat, oblivious to the bushes scratching my legs, books tucked under one arm. I was waving my school report like a flag with my free arm. Pausing to catch my breath before tackling the final climb, I cast another thrilled look at my report card. I removed my shoes with soles cut out of old car tires and picked them up to avoid annoying my dad. You'll wear them out if you wear them in the summer. And resumed running. Once I crested the hill and spotted our lighthouse at the edge of the dark blue cliff, watching over the sea like a loyal guard of the peninsula. I felt even more homesick as the salt wind filled my lungs. I had been missing it so much. My mother must have been watching out since she spotted me when I was still at the top. I ran to her at once, kissed her hand, and held out my report card saying, "All top marks," and added straight away, "Where is that?" hoping for a good report card present. "He has gone hunting," she replied. "Who goes hunting at noon?" I winked, disappointed. "He will be back soon," she said. "Are you hungry?" I was. Not that I cared. I replied with a sore face. I had to find my big sister and Ilyas so I could enjoy a bit freedom before being saddled with works in the garden. I cooked chickpeas with the meat of the partridge your dad had shot. I know you like it. Do you want to try a little bit? I said I wasn't hungry, I growled. Shall I spread some tomato juice on the bread? She asked this time. Crack an onion too? I ate at Nana's, I lied, just to get away. How is she? Is she fine, my mama? Just as I was about to get away with a quick nod, I was captured by ancient Hanımala, Madame Paternal Aunt. Bring it here, bre, so I can see too, she was yelling from inside the house. I tried to scarp her, but she thundered like an Albanian rifle. Bring it over here, Bayao, let me see. But you cannot read the new script, I said. She didn't take a blind bit of notice, twisted and turned my report card in her hand. Next, with an explosive "Bravo, Bayao," she gave me a coin with Sultan's seal she had pulled out of the pouch at her chest. I winked. That is old money, Hanım Hala. It is out of circulation. Grumbling, she took it back and placed a coin with a serrated rim in my palm. Throwing my books this way and my report card the other, I removed my school uniform, chatting to my mother all the while. Mom, do you know what? What? You know, our school used to be a church, right? And we started digging to the garden when we were playing tipcat. We found lots of bones. You know what they were? Human bones. I swear that Mr. Ethem said. Because Greeks used to bury their dead in the church garden. You won't believe how furious he was, how he furious, saying it was a sin. We had to rebury the bones of the departed. Mom, what? Did they used to bury the dead in the church in your village too when you were a little? But I ran away in my underpants without waiting for a reply. She shouted behind me, "They are fishing." I ran to the rocky outcrop at the tip of the lighthouse. Ilyas was sitting under the rocky awning with a pile of pebbles at his side, watching the deep net from above, as my big sister waited by the floats with her back to me. As I climbed down, a shoal of gray mullet rippled, the sun glinting at the bottom of the water. "Pull!" yelled Ilyas. My sister pulled one side of the net with all her might. Ilyas threw pebbles into the water to herd the fish deeper into the net. The shoal changed direction irritably, and Ilyas yelled, "Pull again!" My sister hauled on the other rope to imprison the fish in the net. She made for the dinghy to tip the fish out to the net. But I got there first and took the oars. "Oh, when did you get here then?" she asked with a smile that embraced her face, all top marks. Not content with a hug, a kiss, and a scratch that passed for a stroke on my number 3 shave, she pinched and tickled my tummy until I nearly passed out. Once the horseplay was done, I pulled on the oars and she started gathering the net. As it got smaller and smaller, the fish leaping and thrashing on the surface flashed like silver scimitars. The dinghy filled with fish up to the gunwales. After moving them to the shallow fish pond to keep them fresh, we climbed over the rocks. My sister was the first to dive into the water. She was the fastest runner and climber and the highest diver into the sea. She was the boldest of all us. If she hadn't been going into the water in a dress made of floor socks instead of underpants like us, we'd never remembered she was a girl. Ilyas swam over the beach. He couldn't run as fast as us or climb as high. He got tired real quick, and sometimes his hands, face, or lips would suddenly turn blue. The state doctor in Urla had failed to find a cure, so Dad had taken him to the hospital in Izmir so many times. This heart had defect from birth, and also his blood was real thin, the doctor had said. Mind he doesn't get injured or bleed. The medication given by the hospital had seemed to be working a little, but the hospital had run out last time when they went. The government couldn't bring any from Europe because of the war. So sickly he was, Ilyas was no less naughty than us. Because he was so frail, I tended to regard him as contemporary rather than a big brother.
Thank you. It's so amazing to dive into different worlds. You know, I mean, riding on the wings of your words, literally Braamfontein and, the island of the Lighthouse. Thank you. It was very enriching to listen to both of you. And I want to just ask you, since you're such a, you love India. You keep coming back, your entire wardrobe, as you were telling me, is from India. Is there another novel ticking in your brain about India because you're observing constantly?
Yes, as I said, I'm currently on a manuscript called...
Based in India?
Yeah, in Mumbai. It's called the Nigerian Mafia, Mumbai. So I'm writing...
What's it called?
The Nigerian Mafia.
The Nigerian Mafia, all right.
So it's a series of 10 books, which will be set in different cities of the world.
Okay.
So I'm beginning with Mumbai. Then I moved to New York and then other cities, Sao Paulo. But I started with Mumbai.
Right.
So it's a story of a Nollywood actor who couldn't make it in Nollywood and decided to see if he could make it in Bollywood. So he comes to Bollywood and couldn't make it, so he goes into crime.
Ah, okay. And when will that be out?
Well, we're on the first draft, but there is a publisher, a very big one in the UK, who is very interested in the entire series. So by April at London Book Fair, which I'm attending, we'll be able to sign a contract.
And have you ever been tempted to also make screenplays of your books? I mean, you said there's one that was made on Fontaine. Did you write it?
I did
You
the
did the
screenplay.
screenplay,
But I also adapted my other book into a film, an Igbo film, which did well in festival circle. It's called The Island of Happiness. So I made it into an Igbo film called Agwe Titi Obioto.
Okay.
It did well as an indie film. So what I'm doing is to take most of my books onto the big screen.
Okay.
For people who don't like reading. They can watch.
Okay.
But I'm very excited about the Nigerian Mafia series because it's going to make me rich.
Okay. Richer.
No, rich.
Okay.
I don't have anything.
Right. And Fırat, what's interesting is Onyeka is kind of traveling all over the world with his novels. Yours are kind of Turkey still plays. It's the main character, you know, the Turkish people, etc. So you're going to be spending 3 years in India. Is there going to be any, sort of perspective or slant or in your next book? Or?
Yes, my previous books are, based on stories in Turkey or neighboring countries. But first novel was, for example, in Georgia.
Right.
I am now about to complete a novel which called The Ring. Yes, it is based on Africa, for example. I was an ambassador in Eritrea. Yes,
okay.
So I'm about to complete this book. For example, in this book, there is no Turkish character. It's a pure African book. You know, whenever I visit a country, I live with good memories, and I write them. So, in India, after I finish this book, The Ring, I have some projects. I don't want to tell now, but I would say after my 4 years of tenure, it will be at least 2 novels from India.
Oh, wow. Okay, yes. We are a nation of storytellers, so yes, absolutely. I'm going to open this up for questions now. Yes? Can we have a mic there, please? And do tell us who it's directed to.
Yeah. Hi, Fırat. So my name is Shubho, and I've been to Istanbul. I've always liked Turkish literature, and we have some great writers like Pamuk and Elif Shafak. So my question is to you that how difficult it is to write in Turkey as a writer, and especially when the politics and also the past constantly haunting you. And as a diplomat, how much you can expose the real Istanbul or the real Turkey?
I think the writers like Elif Shafak or Orhan Pamuk you mentioned, they tell about real Turkey, and I am also doing this. But of course, I have a profession. I am a diplomat, and it wouldn't be ethical to write beyond the limits, because I am representative of Turkey. And, but I don't write any politic issues. Even in my books, you may think there are some politics, but these are humanitarian issues. Your human being is in the center. And when you just go through Turkish literature, you can see all kinds of books are permitted and published in Turkey. I don't see any problem. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I want to just add to it. Fırat had actually shared with me that being a diplomat, he actually runs his manuscripts past, Your embassy or the ministry?
Yeah,
The foreign ministry.
It is, but it is not only for Turkey. Globally, it is a rule. If a government officer, high-level diplomat or bureaucrat writes a novel or something, or even an article, we have to get approval from our government. It is normal.
Yeah,
It is a
yeah.
general, issue in all over the world.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
And actually, he's working on something which he will withhold, and when he retires, he will publish it. Sorry, I let that out. Yeah. Yes, please. Is it on, the mic?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Fırat. This question is for Fırat, but also for Onyeka. It's about translations. Fırat, because your books have been translated, and some of them are also being translated into English now, how do you make sure you stay with the authenticity? There's some, in African literature, there's always the conversation about translation. And do we have to translate more into local languages? But also, we talk about translation in the way that, do we have to translate everything? Do we have to give explanations when we are translating? How do you make sure your book is still original in that sense?
And the voice remains.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
This is really a very important question, and it's a big challenge. I cannot write my novels in English or in other language, just Turkish, but they are being translated. If the translation is English or German, I can speak both of the language. I can assess whether it's a good translation or not. But, for example, I can even not read this book. I don't know whether you can see, maybe a cameraman can zoom it.
Can you zoom in to
yeah.
the book?
So this is translated into Georgian and with another letters. This is, for example, Albanian. I cannot read. But translation is always a challenge in literary works. So normal articles or non-fictions, you can translate more easier because you have to translate the words or sentences. But in literary works, you have to translate the feelings, you have to translate the wordings, and it's always risky. So I cannot evaluate the other translations because I cannot read them. But the last one, this Lighthouse family novel, I checked, and the translator was really successful. She could reflect my wording. I hope our reader will also like it. But this is really a problem. If you cannot write, in original language, translation is always a risk in literary works.
Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, coming to, the translations in Africa. You know that most of us can't even speak our local languages in Nigeria, right? Yeah, so there is no market for, there is no market in Igbo language, Yoruba, and the rest. We only read them for exams. So I don't think, that's why I prefer writing Strangers of Braamfontein in Pidgin English. Yeah, so that it can cut across everyone in West Africa. Yeah, but there is no market for us in our local languages. Everyone wants their child to learn French and German and Turkish.
Turkish, yeah. Yes? Could we have a mic there, please? Just a minute, yeah. And then we'll take your question, yeah.
Hi. Love your shoes, by the way. Again, this question is for both of you. As Rajasthanis, we grow up speaking 5 languages, and English is, we go to school with English, and at home we speak Rajasthani, which they say changes every 20 miles. So there are so many lingos. And Hindi, of course, we have to learn, and we taught Sanskrit in school. And anyway, so, in continuation of what this lady asked, when both of you write, which is the language that you think in? Before you put your thoughts on paper, which is the language that goes around in your head? Is it your mother tongue? Is it English? Is it Turkish? What is it?
I used to think in Igbo. At a point, English took over. But when I was growing up, I used to think in Igbo. But now I think in English in what I call fabricated English. So,
And what would Igbo be like? Could you just say a sentence in Igbo?
English language makes you loquacious. You talk very fast, right? But in Igbo language, you need to think slowly to be able to make a sentence, so you don't make a
So if
mistake.
you say, I'm really happy to be here at the festival, how would you
Okay,
say?
I would say, Obi dumoto nam no eba. So our languages make you speak slowly, but English makes you really loquacious. You just start ranting, but you need to think when you're writing Hindi or Chinese in script, you have to be a deep thinker to be able to write them. But English is simple that you have to talk fast.
And can you express yourself more in Igbo, or does English have the words?
No, I lost it completely. Yeah, I lost it while growing up. But I'm trying to get it back because I just set up the Igbo language class at the University of Oxford, where I brought volunteers to teach Igbo language to Igbo people based in England.
So my answer is simpler. I think and write in Turkish.
And in fact, your first manuscript was about the Weeping Willow thing, where initially he got someone was translating, and you were so unhappy about
yes,
it.
That's true. So 10 years ago, we started translating this novel, which was adapted to a series. And then my publisher get a contract with a professional literature translator in London. And then after a while, she sent us back 1/3 of the translated text in order to check. Okay, I cannot write in English, but I can evaluate whether it's a good translation or not. And then I just took this translation and read. That was a nice English, a correct English in sense of grammar, but not a literary work. Nothing from my wording or feelings. And then I said, stop, I don't want to continue. Because all other translations, they will take this book as a base. English is a base language. Once you start, in a bad translation, then other languages, they will be all bad translations. So that I was so disappointed. That's why it has taken 10 years that I start again translating my books in English. So I think India is the perfect place for this.
Fiti. Yes, sir. I think that'll be the last question, right? Yeah.
Hi.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is someone else going?
All right, no, if you can make it short, then
Sure,
yeah.
sure. We're live streaming this session to Menza, and our audience there has a question for you. What is the essence or emotion that is missing when you are thinking or speaking or writing in Igbo and Turkish and, English? What do you feel that one essence or emotion which is missing?
I think it's about finding the right words to use. So in Igbo language, you have different dialects, and you need to be able to, there is one they call Igbo Izugbe, which is the standard Igbo, so you need to be able to reflect and then say it out without causing chaos. So it takes time, it's like mathematics. Igbo language is quite difficult. So you need to think deeply before saying anything. You take your time.
So I don't want to tell about emotions because they are more or less similar. But some expressions you can really not translate if they are local. And even in my books, when I write in Turkish, for example, there are some Russian expressions or Greek expressions. I just leave them as it is because if I try to translate it, then the meaning will be not the same and the book will not be the same. So this is my point of view, yeah.
I just want to add one thing that Indian languages I feel are far richer than English, and just simply you say uncle and aunt, but we have, the relationship very clearly defined and you know exactly what that lineage is. You don't have that in English. So very quickly, one question, the last one.
My question is to Fırat. So we have seen your work is in fiction. So with your rich experience in diplomacy and foreign policy, do we expect a book maybe later on foreign policy as well, or diplomacy?
Yeah, I may think of this. I like literature, and that's why I am writing novels. And one day when I get retired, maybe I can also write, some books about diplomacy and so on. We have so many very valuable writers, ambassadors in Turkey. They have works about foreign policy, analysis, international relations. But I am the first and only career diplomat in our ministry who is a novelist.
Wonderful. And on that note, we're ending. Hand it over, Deba.
I just wanted to ask one short question.
Sure, it's your venue. Go ahead.
Yes, I'll take the liberty. So, simple. Do the movies, do they do justice to the books? Yes.
Okay, because I'm the one who adapted my own book into a film, I felt relieved and satisfied.
And richer.
I felt satisfied. I felt it's my work. It's still the same thing on screen. So.
And like Hitchcock,
and nobody will argue with me over it.
Like Hitchcock, do you also make an appearance in your films?
Yeah, I do a cameo in all my films.
All right. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure
Thank you very
presenting
much.
your books to the audience. Thank you.